The Smart Merchant's Guide to Reducing Merchant Credit Card Processing Fees. Your instructor, Adam Flommer, has over 15 years of experience in the merchant credit card processing industry. Adam began his career in the merchant payment industry in 1994, and since he's held senior management positions for the most reputable firms in the merchant card acquiring industry, including First Data, Union Bank of California, Global Payments, and most recently Connect Merchant Payment Services, where he held the position of president. Mr. Flommer founded EP Consulting, an independent consulting firm that helps small and mid-sized businesses minimize and manage their payment processing costs. Mr. Flommer's expertise includes pricing, interchange, transaction delivery systems, chargeback risk management, payment card industry compliance, point of sales equipment, and merchant service contracts. Here's Adam Flommer.
Thank you, Bill, and welcome again. In this course, we're going to uncover a lot of information that the processors don't necessarily want you to know. And I'm going to share simple, actionable steps that you can take to add hundreds and in most cases thousands of dollars back into your company's bottom line each year. Before we begin, I want to congratulate you on prioritizing this cost reduction initiative. I call this playing good defense. So many companies spend so much time, effort, and money on their offense and really neglect having any game plan on defense at all. Let's think about the value of reducing a cost like this. Every dollar you cut from this expense goes directly to your bottom line, and in general, only a fraction of new sales revenue ever makes it to the bottom line after you account for cost of goods sold plus the sales and marketing costs associated with bringing in new revenue. For many companies, a $10,000 cost reduction is equal to $50,000 in new revenue. So why am I pointing that out? For me, it puts the importance of cost reduction in perspective. As far as this cost goes, debit and credit usage continues to grow. Debit and credit card processing expenses also continue to grow. Hope is not a good strategy when it comes to this, so it only makes sense to have a strong understanding of credit card processing and a good strategy to reduce this expense even more and keep it as low as possible. When it comes to reducing your credit card processing fees, you have 5 options in terms of a game plan. 3 of them are what I consider ineffective, and 2 are very effective. By far the most common strategy played out is nothing. Obviously, I don't think that's why you purchased this course, but for what it's worth, this is the most common approach taken. There are 3 reasons people don't do anything. Number 1, despite the best of intentions, many folks are waiting for their schedule to clear long enough to do something about it. They're always in a state of planning to do something about it. Unfortunately, that time never comes, so they don't do anything about it, and their company continues to leak profits. Number 2, they think they need to change processors to do this. The thought of losing money each month is not as bad as the thought of changing companies. Number 3, they're convinced that they have a great deal and that there are no savings left to be had. This is common. I don't think it's a surprise that processors have become very good at convincing customers that they have a really great deal. It is a surprise, however, when these same merchants realize that they were paying $700 or $800 more each month than they really needed to. Here's another method that doesn't work. Calling the processor and asking them to lower your rate. Your processor will likely give you what they call a rate review. Now, the good news is that your processor will almost always reduce your fees for you. The bad news is it'll be nowhere near as low as it would be if you knew exactly what to ask for. For example, your processor is making around $600 a month in profitability, and you ask them to lower your rate. They will because they don't want to lose you, but you could expect a $50 to $100 in monthly savings. Meanwhile, you're still paying $400 more a month than you need to. I think you will agree that unless you know exactly what to ask for, they're not going to volunteer it. Another choice is to shop around and switch processors. Generally, you could expect to spend 4 to 5 hours researching, gathering proposals, sitting through sales presentations. Now, the competing processor wants your business, but they want to make as much profit from your business as possible. So the best case scenario is that they will undercut your existing processor just enough to show you some savings, but in the end, their objective is to retain as much profit as they can. It's also not uncommon to change to a lower rate, only to find that you're paying more overall. Remember this, unless you know as much as the other side, you could expect to pay more than you need to. You'll also soon learn that achieving reduced pricing is just one part of the equation. There are other considerations that you will need to understand to truly minimize this cost. As far as ways that do work or that are effective, you can hire an expert to do it for you. That's what my firm, EP Consulting, does. We're not the only firm that specializes in this, but there are really only a handful of firms that do what we do. Our clients hire us because they want to minimize this cost. They would prefer not to have to switch providers to do it. They want somebody to monitor their activity to make sure they're routing transactions to the least costly method, and they don't have the time, interest, or desire to do what we do, so we become their in-house expert. Obviously, that service isn't free. Firms like mine usually charge fees based on the incremental savings that we deliver. Some charge an hourly fee plus a share of the savings. Finally, you can effectively do this yourself if you know what you're doing. As you'll soon see, there's a lot more to this than shopping rates. Today I'm going to walk you through step by step what you need to know and what you need to do to minimize this cost. These are the same basic things we do for our clients, and I'm going to share them with you. So let's get started. Here's the agenda of what we're going to cover. I'm going to share the best pricing that you must insist on and why. Net sales versus gross sales, and how to keep your processor from double dipping on your refund credits. We're going to discuss what it means to manage your interchange. For those of you who have a physical location where the customers pay face-to-face, I will discuss the difference between offline debit and PIN-based debit and how you can maximize savings by properly influencing how your customer pays. I will cover the myriad of incidental fees that processors charge and help you pick your battles on the important ones to negotiate. We'll talk about a few of the common pitfalls to avoid, and finally a quiz that you could use to ensure you're ready to go. I recommend that while you listen, you have the interchange guide that was included with this handy, since we will make reference to it from time to time. You will find the interchange guide to be an invaluable tool. One more quick note before we go on. I want to quickly explain who I mean when I say processor. I'm using that as a generic term for the entity that controls your processing terms. It could be an actual processor such as Global Payments, First Data, or Elevon. It could be a bank, and it could be an independent sales organization. Depending on who you set up your account with, any of those types of organizations may manage the terms of your account, so for the purposes of this lesson, we'll simply refer to any of those players as the processor.